Of the stories surrounding the riots this summer, there were four that I believe were the most important, and all four of those stories have either been ignored or tainted with the stench of the communal litter box that is the mainstream media. David Dorn was the first story, a former cop who was shot in the head in the St. Louis riots while defending his friend's pawn shop. I saw the video when it first came out, and it literally made me sick to my stomach. To watch the carelessness of the BLM rioter who shot him in the head and left him to die in the street. We watched as the life slipped from David's body, and his eyes went blank, all over a TV. Then there was Kyle Rittenhouse, aka the Kenosha Kid. This one was a little closer to home for me, as I grew up in that area and had family who worked in Kenosha when I was very young. I won't get into the details of this one. I will say if you want to see an accurate, in-depth breakdown of the events of that night, watch Colion Noir's video about Kyle. I do hope that his lawyers will eventually prove him to be innocent, but suffice it to say that he's been misrepresented by the mainstream media on a criminal level. Then there was Aaron Danielson, the Trump supporter who was hunted by a deranged BLM terrorist and shot in cold blood in Portland. His shooter was then given a puff piece on Vice News where he said he had to shoot Aaron in some kind of bullshit Minority Report delusion that Aaron was about to stab a person of color. His shooter eventually ended up 6 feet under where he belongs. But this video is about Jake Gardner, the man who was attacked by a group of rioters outside his bar in Omaha, Nebraska. The rioters got into a fight with Jake's father and ultimately attacked Jake himself. Jake ended up on the ground with one of those rioters on his back. He fired 2 warning shots before ultimately shooting the man on his back in self-defense. He was an Iraq War veteran who was mercilessly slandered by the media. He had his businesses destroyed, had his home taken from him. He lost everything because he dared to defend himself from a mob who attacked him first. It ultimately ended in his suicide. This one hit me hard, not because I can relate to his specific situation, but because I know the kind of hopelessness he felt. I know what it's like to lose everything and feel like there's no way out. Even a member of his own family made a video condemning his self-defense as murder, and went on to explain that some racist jokes made at a family reunion once, not even specifying whether it was Jake, were the reason he shot the man who attacked him. While I do believe suicide is a personal choice, I also believe the government and the mainstream media have blood on their hands in this case. The government prosecuted him for political reasons, while the media did their best to portray him as some kind of monster. So I'd like to share 2 videos that I found that I think shows what kind of man Jake was.
This is Jake Gardner. I'm from Omaha, Nebraska.
And then Jake, what brings you to DC?
I'm here for the inauguration.
Okay, I understand you were a volunteer for the Trump
Yeah,
campaign?
I was a volunteer for the Trump campaign in Nebraska, California, and Michigan.
Okay, and what do you think about what's going on here today with the Women's March?
You know, these people just want to be heard, and it's a very appropriate venue, a very appropriate weekend with all eyes on them. So, I mean, it is what it is. It's kind of crazy being in the belly of the beast here with my Trump gear and my Make America Great vest on my dog, you know, and all the dirty looks. Everybody loves the dog until they read the vest, you know. But, you know, everybody just wants to be heard, and so that's what they're doing. They're not being violent. There's not even that issue with this group.
Do you think they're justified in some of their criticisms of the new president?
I do. I mean, everyone's justified in their criticisms. You can't tell anybody what they're entitled to feel on any level, you know, and if somebody feels that this is something that's going to get in their way, I could see the women's rights argument against the conservative right, with Mike Pence being the vice presidential choice. You know, Donald Trump is a very left-leaning social kind of guy. You know, he may be a conservative with government, be shrinking the government, and have a lot of plans on that front, on the conservative side, but socially he's as libertarian, as libertine leaning as it goes, I think. And so I think a lot of their criticisms they're going to be proven wrong, but they certainly have the right to speak their mind.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of my close friends, a brother in arms, Jake Gardner, was there with me, and today we sat down to remember that darkness-covered crossing from Kuwait into Iraq. Agitated. And I remember when we first moved, our gunny came in and woke us up at like 2 o'clock in the
Yep,
morning.
that's when it was.
Pack
2 in
your
the morning.
stuff.
It's time to go.
We're going. And 17 hours later, we're there in mop suits,
Yep.
hanging out at the LZ.
Yep, I think we started the invasion at 3 in the morning Zulu time, and yeah, it was game on from there. I have the most explicit memory of everything from the moment we went across that border till the moment I got on that plane and went home. It was like days and days before we saw anything. All of a sudden, the Fedayeen and the Republican Guard are both closing in on us from different directions, and that was the craziest night of my life. 16 hours straight firefighting.
We weren't getting mail, we weren't getting showers, we weren't getting anything. It's hard enough. We were just trying to get food and ammo.
Absolutely. We that guy, that Colonel Dowdy, couldn't get us food, couldn't get us ammo, got relieved right on that bridge. That was the second craziest thing I'd ever seen.
Just blew planes.
But yeah, we were blowing a plane and just every kind of weapon you could imagine stashed in there, everything. That was a big cachet on information and weapons, and that was a huge moral victory for us because
we're always going to bear some of the mental scarring from what we saw and what we did. It's just about trying to move past that.
We're talking about 4,800 dead, hundreds of thousands deployed, 1 million combat vets at this point 10 years later, and yeah, we are a tiny piece of that puzzle. I've received unbelievable support from the Marine Corps and the VA and the friends I gained in there, and I think that a huge part of our mental health being where it is this connection that we still have with each other.
We do. Jake and I talk a lot, and a big thank you to Jake for helping tell this story. As we said, we are just a small part of the much bigger story. Even without combat troops still in the country, there are still men and women that are in danger over there.
So, we need to ask ourselves this question. Is this the kind of world we want to live in? Where people are demonized, stripped of their livelihood, and even killed or driven to suicide for defending themselves and their property? This is absolutely 100% diametrically opposed to the values this country was founded on. And we're throwing them away for what? The BLM narrative is wrong, provably wrong. These people were sacrificed for a lie, and history will judge our actions at this moment accordingly.